Hello and welcome to the Customer Acquisition Show. I am your host, Tom Meredith, VP of Marketing here at Tira 11, joined by two of my team, Daniel Green and Lynn Swayze. Welcome back.
Hey.
Hello.
So today we figured it would be a perfect time to start talking about 2024. So a lot of direct-to-consumer and e-commerce brands are probably just coming out of the hangover and recovery phase from Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which was really the whole month of November. It seemed like by the time it got to Cyber Monday, it seemed like, a lot of the energy had died out, at least for my own, shopping experience and feed. But coming out of that, starts getting into this stage where brands should really be thinking about their 2024 and how they're going to be approaching that. So that's what we're going to be doing today, is talking about your marketing plan for 2024 and how to think about what you might be doing differently.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Did you guys get anything amazing on Black Friday and Cyber Monday?
You got some of the kids' Christmas presents, and we sent some deals to the grandparents for the kids. So, yeah, that's kind of our approach. We're so for Christmas, from us to the kids, we're going on a trip instead. So we don't have much present buying to do in our own family, although my wife's family has like 100 people in it. So we still have a lot that we're shopping for. So we just passed off deals to family and said, hey, buy this for the kids. And had some success there.
Am I the only one who, when they send their family Amazon links, they use Amazon affiliate links?
I don't blame you.
No, but that's smart.
Get that 3 cent kickback.
Christmas, it just got better. Yeah, the big thing I got was a pool vacuum. Ours was on its last leg, and the pool was starting to look green. So it wasn't really a gift or anything. It was just a deal.
That'll help with the kids' parties, I'm guessing.
It already looks so much better, and we all just kind of go outside and watch the pool vacuum do the work now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, can you use the pool year round?
No, it's very cold right now. If I was into ice baths, yes, but
very cold. California
right.
cold.
I mean, it's probably like the pool water has to be below 70.
Yeah. The Pacific Ocean's far colder than that. Your pool is probably always going to be warmer.
True.
But you acclimate, the human body acclimates. So
just buy a wetsuit.
It feels cold.
It's been really hard to acclimate out here because, it's cold today, cold being, high 50s, low 60s. But next week it's going to be high 70s again. So how do you acclimate when it's all over the place? Man,
California struggles.
It's hard.
I feel so bad for you, Tom. It's rainy and upper 30s here today.
That's what we've got. Yeah.
So I don't want to hear about your pool anymore. Let's talk about marketing.
Good plan. Speaking of plans, how should brands be looking at 2023? Like any specific things they should be taking from 2023 when they start their 2024 marketing planning?
That's a good question. I mean, you always want to look at your best performers. So if you're not here at Tier 11 with our clients, we do QBRs and look at best performers, look at trends. So always look at those. I think it's also important to assess what hooks or what, kind of psychographics or avatars didn't you touch, right? And are there trends that competitors had hopped on or pain points that competitors were addressing that you weren't? So kind of taking a big holistic view. Of course, I'm content copywriter, so I'm going to look at the psychology. But that's what I would say. I'm sure a media buyer might say something different of, well, look at your best performers. That counts. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I would say. But and take that information into 2024 with the understanding that what did work might not work. That's kind of always the catch with it, right? With media buying or creating content in general, is just because it worked doesn't mean it's going to. But that is kind of a head start you can have to at least get things rolling. But yeah, definitely noticing your trends, I think, is a big thing. And, Lynn, you were saying looking at audiences that you may not have touched in the previous year. But I also think one of the things you could definitely analyze is what are the new audiences you didn't expect to reach in this past year? Because that may be something you've been like, oh, cool, we broke into this little world, but you never really explored it deeper. And you could find that you've just got a much bigger audience there than you actually realized. So definitely look at the new things that you discovered, and is there any more opportunity in there as well?
Yeah, I think that is a good point. It's like really important to kind of dive into your data and really mine it. And after having probably a lot more customers come through in the last month, those are people you should be reaching out to and talking to and finding out what about them haven't you explored yet. And one of the things that we've been talking about this whole year, it seems like, is expanding beyond your core group, your core audience, the people who are most likely to convert. How do you expand out into broader audiences through awareness and consideration, which I'm sure we'll hit on in a little bit. For me, the big thing, really looking back, would probably be like the channels that were most effective for you. And that's not just, YouTube versus Google versus Facebook versus TikTok. Like, it's like, how effective was your email? How effective, if you do PR, was PR or news cycles? And really try to identify the spots where you had success, and then look into why you had success in these areas to see if any of that translates over to other areas.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's something to be said too of like going into the new year. Obviously, there are the stereotypical trends that you probably want to look forward to, but I think you hit January, you hit the whole like new year, new you sort of mindset for a lot of things. But even beyond just that mindset, I think looking at what worked for you last January, this previous January, seeing what connected with your audience then, I think that's kind of the low-hanging fruit at the beginning of the year, or I guess, end of this year, this month, going into the new year. Look for that low-hanging fruit of like, okay, what worked for us in January that might be around some of those new year mindsets, and how can we leverage that again?
It goes to timeliness. So, as you think about planning your marketing, and hopefully, the e-commerce brands listening are planning for holidays, but if you're not, that's a quick win for any brand. How can you add timeliness and relevancy to the mindset where people are right now? And that includes holidays. Is it, Memorial Day or, Independence Day or Halloween or whatnot, and thinking about the space that people are in and tying your marketing to that. We have at least one case study where the best campaign they ever did was because they tied their product to like Memorial Day.
Yeah.
And the things that worked at specific times throughout the year last year are likely to work again in the coming years. It's not, while there are general kind of larger factors at play, in the end, people tend to go through the same cycles throughout the year.
Yeah. And that, with holidays as your reference point, that's an easy way to figure out what people's mindsets are going to be. Around Thanksgiving and Black Friday, people are ready to buy. Like even going into Christmas, they're ready to buy. Maybe if you are a fitness brand or you make some sort of exercise equipment, probably around Christmas and New Year's, those first few months of the year, people might be more inclined to look into your product and do some research. So you can use those holidays, those specific times of years, excuse me, as your reference point, and start to craft some sort of planning, not necessarily content, but some sort of planning around like, hey, we know we want to push this much around this time because this is where our buyers are going to be.
So thinking like some of the broader trends that we've been seeing or are expecting in 2024, anything that comes to mind for either of you?
As far as what?
Well, so we just had our Tier 11 leadership meeting. We were talking a fair amount of kind of the economic environment, where for like the last 18 months, people have been talking recession, except the economy keeps growing. So it's like very unstable, uncertain. But we have started to see a lot more messaging around efficiency towards brands, like brands talking about how they're more efficient. Are they going for agencies that or maybe charge less, or considering bringing something in-house? Like what's actually most efficient? Reducing their spend. I mean, it's how you approach it.
That's the copy language for a recession is, save money, be more efficient. As opposed to grow. Like when you're not in a recession, when you're in a growth phase in the economy, I make more money right now and scale to the moon, but that rings false in a recession. So that's totally on point.
Yeah. And it's very much like adding more value for what people are getting. And that doesn't necessarily mean charging less as a brand, but it's delivering better service, better product, making sure that people have success with your brand and product. Shifting your budget around from one channel to another. There's maybe a sense that you should put more into the types of campaigns that generate the most return, but we've seen through a variety of internal and external case studies that putting your money into conversion campaigns only is not the most efficient way in the long run. It's spreading it out through the whole customer journey.
Right. Just remember, only 3 to 10% are ready to buy now. The entire audience that you could reach. And so, it's paramount to reach everybody else, the 90 to 97%. I think before we go into that, the trends, I think, be aware that privacy and platforms are like, everything's changing. New laws are rolling out in the EU. There will probably be further changes, especially overseas, possibly in the US as well. As well, we just saw that over 40% of purchases for Black Friday were buy now, pay later, which again is a potentially, I don't know if an indicator of recession, but an indicator of where we're at economically. And so if you don't have that offering installed, get that offering installed. Find ways to break up your products a little bit smaller, to sell to more people.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. It's interesting. Said 40%?
Something like that, yeah. At least 40%.
Yeah.
Are buy now, pay later, is that risky for a brand? Like, are they on the hook if somebody defaults?
No, I think they get paid up front. Of course, I'm not an expert in this, but I'm guessing, much like email, if too many people default, they might not be able to the provider of the buy now, pay later, like Klarna and Pay in 4 and things like that, might say, hey, you can't stay enrolled in the program. I'm guessing, but no, they're not on the hook. That's why you pay a fee to these companies to facilitate that for you. Now, if you did it in-house, yes. So if you did a payment plan in-house through software that you have and your merchant accounts and whatnot, you'd be on the hook and you'd have to pursue collections in some form. But so it's not a lot of risk.
But it is
for the lost fees.
Yeah, it is an interesting insight though to the broader economy and how people are spending their money, because between that, you see stories about credit card debt being at the highest it's ever been.
Yeah. So, Lynn, you think could we say that's officially a trend going into the new year? That's just where buyers are at, where people are at?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And within that, we're also going into election year, which doesn't help anything. It makes things a little crazier in general. But I think, I was just thinking through the recession sort of aspect of it. And you were talking about efficiencies. But I think the one thing that we can do as marketers and businesses can do as well that isn't financial, is becoming more efficient and more clear with how you're presenting your your offers and your products. I think if you could become more clear on what your product does, what the benefits are, and just get straight to the point on how it's going to help this person or your potential buyer, I think that alone is going to also help you find more success. Because if you just have so much fluff, like I don't like fluff in general. I'm not a fluffy person. So I think that's going to be somewhere where you can become more efficient. That isn't, monetary. You become more efficient in your marketing itself and, like your copywriting or your creative, and really just get things boiled down to a point where you're making it so easy for a customer to understand what you do and what you offer that they're not really going to have to consider any of your competitors, or they're going to go to a competitor's site and be like, what are these guys talking about? If you can really boil things down to that point where you're so clear that a buyer doesn't have to ask any more questions, or if they do have questions, they know where they could find them, or you've already answered them in more of your content. I think that's a point where you can definitely get more efficient in your marketing without having to cut budgets back.
And we saw that from Meta, where they said, what they call it, that consumers have new muscles for taking in information and are making decisions at lightning speed. I think the risk is that people will take that to mean we should do less content, when what I'm hearing from you is more. Address more of questions, dig into more angles so that you can find the clarity point. Talk about more of the features, talk about more of the benefits. I think it means more content, not less, but better content.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily mean paid content. I harp on it like every time I'm on the show. It could be organic content, organic social. Like that's one of the easiest spots to do it. It could be user-generated stuff, having real customers answer questions in a reel or something. Meta's been pushing reels like crazy, so why not leverage that with user-generated content in your reels? But it could also be the back-end stuff, like on your site. Optimize your website. Obviously, that's time and money as well. But if you can get a good FAQ section on your site, that works wonders. So it's not necessarily about ad budgets, that's for sure. But yeah, more content in one form or another, whether that's organic social or blogs that are on your site. It is time. It can be money, but
that's part of the shifting budget. I mean, that's what we've been talking about for months now, is that, awareness, consideration, conversion, brand building, full funnel, whatever you want to call it. It's shifting your budget to more. It has to be organic. It has to be your website. It needs to be UGC. Like, we're seeing that brands are not able to scale if they're only spending money on paid ads at the conversion level. You reach a ceiling, and we see it over and over and over again, where you just can't push past it. And the brands we've seen with amazing case studies, even our own clients with amazing case studies, all have had or have begun to implement brand building stuff. The law firm, they had brand building. They had videos and organic content and great case study pages and great product pages and placements everywhere in PR. Another, client that we have that's in the information marketing space, same thing. We started pushing their blog posts. They had videos. They had multiple lead magnets. They've got organic stuff. Like, we see it time and time again that the brands that only want to rely on paid ads at the bottom of the funnel, and they put all their budget to it, they stop scaling. So I think, to your point, Daniel, like, the data is proving you right. Yeah. You were right.
I'll take it.
Yeah, and another potential, a couple places for efficiency, again, it would be CRO stuff on your website, things that don't cost as much directly as paid advertising. Because if you can get your website and your customer journey on your website dialed in and efficient, then you can always put more money into the paid channels to drive to this higher converting site.
Give you an example. I once worked on a campaign where we didn't change the ads. All I did was look at the landing page, and I optimized the above the fold, the headline, the subhead, put some social proof trust factors at the top. 14% lift within the first 2 weeks in conversions. 14% just changing above the fold. And I had like a whole page optimizations. Like, yeah, we don't need it. We'll do those later. This is plenty. But it can have that much of an impact.
All right. So we've talked about looking at your previous year, evaluating what's worked, what hasn't, using that as part of your plan, looking at the broader economic environment and potentially becoming a more efficient so that as a brand you can survive and be ready to grow when things are a lot more clear. These are kind of things like setting the stage for planning. Anything else that we should be considering before we start to get into the details? Cool.
No, I don't think so.
Get into the meat.
Yeah. All right. So, in your notes here, Lynn, one of the things I saw is like the thing you should always keep in mind is your company mission. Like everything you do from marketing or customer service, or even when you are into product development, it's all about the company mission. How important do you view, or how do you think people should look through that lens when they are doing their planning for 2024?
So this is where, I'm very woo when it comes to marketing, and I'll go woo and then I'll go practical. From a woo perspective, when everybody is aligned around the vision that you're trying to build, what you're trying to manifest as an organization, as a collection of people in your marketing, keeping that front and center makes it more likely that you're going to actually achieve that. But more than that, it's easy to get distracted by the shiny objects. It's easy to go, oh, I want to try this trend, or I want to do this thing. And that thing may have nothing to do with the mission you're trying to achieve. Yeah, it might be great to get so-and-so on this show, or, to do that. But if it's not actually helping your customers make their lives better, or it's not helping you meet the long-term company goal, it's a good idea, but it's not going to help you meet your goal. It's waste of time. So practical and woo, important to keep the mission in mind. Mission, vision, two sides of the same coin.
How do you keep marketing connected to the rest of the business?
Big picture goals. So, as if you're a marketing leader and you're developing marketing plans, your marketing plans should be built on what the goals are for the year from leadership. And if leadership isn't giving you clear goals, then something's wrong. Like, you need to get that clarity so that you as a marketing manager can say, hey, we did what you asked. We are helping grow revenue. The risk is marketing is doing stuff in a silo and isn't having those conversations with business to say, hey, this is how marketing is driving revenue. Marketing is meeting these big picture goals for the company. Because once you can tie those things together, then you can have better conversations about budget and strategy and start to get the buy-in that marketing needs.
I guess from your perspective, what if you're the marketing manager, you don't have very clear goals, what kind of things should they be pushing for, and from whom?
Usually this is I would think the CEO who is helping guide this. If not, your CFO definitely will have goals. Like, how much revenue? Like, what are our revenue goals for the next year? Do we want to grow our revenue? Are we trying to cut costs? Are we not caring about revenue? And maybe it's all about, lifetime customer value and increasing, the overall worth of a customer or a client. If no one else, the CFO should be able to give you some. And I go by revenue. Of course, we're direct response marketers. I believe that, we're here to drive revenue. Ultimately, of course, delivering a good product, delivering a good experience only makes getting revenue that much easier.
I think it's a really good framework for this next couple of steps here. So we've got our goal for revenue. maybe some questions are about like, how much are we trying to drive that revenue from our current customers versus new customers, which will kind of guide the next steps in the planning. If it's current customers, that there's definitely a marketing aspect, but potentially some product development that goes into developing new products.
Yeah, because like AOV. So if you think of lifetime and the marketing math, lifetime customer value is the overall, right? Including initial sales, which is average order value, and repeat sales. They all contribute to lifetime customer value. So as a super metric, it's a useful one. But yeah, for AOV contributes. So if we can get people to either buy more or like buy more per purchase, which new products comes into play. Hopefully you have more than one product. It contributes to that overall lifetime customer value, total revenue goals. So yeah.
Nice. So this kind of gets down to like knowing your numbers for like the last year, really like what's your cost per acquisition, like really diving into like, again, the channels that you're most successful for and really developing your plan to meet those revenue goals or any other goals. But you kind of have to have a basis for your decision making in your numbers.
Yeah, we've seen time and time again that the brands that don't know their numbers aren't scaling. And they don't scale until they know their numbers. It's like knowing your personal financials. It's painful to look at zeros or to look at negative numbers, but you have to have somewhere to start. You have to know where the baseline is.
I lost my train of thought there.
Sorry.
No, it's good.
So bringing that into the steps, right?
Yeah.
Or what we're doing.
Yeah. So the steps. And another thing I'd say, considering like what works and what you want to test and explore, like even though we're trying to be efficient, we still want to be exploring new potential areas of growth and efficiency. Maybe not as much of the budget, but still having areas that we want to be testing, always testing. So getting a little bit like deeper into the strategy here, how do we like getting into like the levels of awareness and thinking through the customer journey, knowing our overall goals? What are some of the next steps?
So we think about, I'll use what we do at Tier 11 as a framework, right? So we would often, we'd start the conversation with your goals and then look at your budget, and we'd talk about how we split things. Like what are we currently doing across awareness, consideration, and conversion? What are we currently spending? And then how can we shift that? Yeah, and we could dig into each of those, but yeah.
Would you remember?
Do we want to give an example and maybe pull that example?
One thing I always question is like, do you start at the end or the beginning?
In terms of the answer, yes.
Let's start at what people spend. Let's start what people spend the most time on and money on, and rush through it, which is bottom of funnel conversion. Right. You know, most people, most brands right now are spending like, we've seen brands who are spending 90% of their budget on conversion, 90%. And that's all marketing activities are to get the sale. That's traditional performance advertising. We can talk about that really quickly. People are going to know what that is, right? That's the buy now. It's Black Friday. Here's a sale. It's the retargeting. Hey, you left this in your cart. It's your product pages. It's, buy now, book a call. It's the stuff we think of as marketing. It's the stuff sales wants marketing to do. It's the stuff that, maybe your CEO or your COO is like, yes, we need this content. But again, that's only hitting the 3 to 10%.
Right. Yeah, that's the numbers that anybody who cares about numbers wants to see, right? It's the sales.
Mm-hmm. It's like that dopamine.
And it's important.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it's really, really important. So I'm not saying no, never do that stuff. It is absolutely an essential part of marketing. It should be an essential part of your marketing plan, but not the bulk of your marketing plan. Because what we know is that if you only focus on that bit, you'll run out of audience. You'll run out of audience. You'll run out of scale. You won't reap the rewards you would have had in 6 months or a year, as if you had done the brand building that we're going to talk about next. So yes, it's immediate wins at the expense of dramatic future growth.
Right. Because if you're saying only 3% are ready to buy at that point in time, you're spending 90% of your budget on 3 out of 100. So how do you hit the 97 who might be interested? We're not saying they're not interested. They're just not ready to buy, or they may not have heard of you, so how do you hit those? And that's where awareness and consideration come in.
Yep.
So if we're looking at this from like a year-long plan, which maybe feels a little long for some brands and who are very conversion focused, talk about like maybe some of the next steps for planning out and delivering content or anything else that's a bit more focused upper funnel. And there's, of course, going to have to be some convincing of people that, well, it's not going to show up now, but maybe by July it starts hitting, so that by the time we get to Black Friday, our overall audience is larger, that we can then hit harder on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And what are some of the next steps for thinking through maybe moving up from conversion?
A good question, because this really is the diamond question, and there's so much to it. Daniel, do you have any thoughts as I think?
I mean, you guys probably know my answer is really use your social platforms as a playground. I know that's not necessarily planning. You can plan it for sure. You could plan your organic social content. But if you can be intentional while you do that with, like, we want to find these audiences, let's put our messaging out there in our organic social. That really allows you to easily see what's resonating with people, and it can inform so much more of the rest of your funnel. So that's always going to be my answer, is the easiest, cheapest, approach to discover anything you need to discover practically about your audiences or your product or your business, is to get on organic social and really, leverage that as much as you possibly can. It's probably, in my mind, it's the most useful tool that you have available to you, because it's cheap, if not.
And the algorithms will pick stuff up. Yeah, I mean, you have the time, so you have the marketing cost, but if you can, you'll see where people start to comment. You'll see where the algorithms are saying, "Ooh, this is good," and you can use those learnings to inform the rest of your content.
Yeah, hopefully, and you can see what your competitors are doing too. I mean, we talk about competitor research a lot, and I think a lot of times, even for me, I hear competitor research and I think like, go to their website, poke around, see what they've got, go to their ad library. But you go through their social and start looking at comments, start reading what people are saying to them, how they're interacting. And, that's very informative. And, obviously if you're already doing your own organic social, going back to things that you could take 2023 into 2024, you could look at your organic social too and really, really do a deep dive into that and see what people were doing there. Like, how were they interacting with you? And did you do a good job of interacting with them as well? And, organic social is one of the most informative things you have available to you.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the how of showing up, but also there's the content, right? The big ideas,
right?
The questions, the topics. So both.
Yeah. I think it is that what as well, like identifying, if we're talking about consideration, it's people who are considering your product, which means they likely have questions or concerns, which you should be addressing in this phase of the funnel. And whether it's organic social, email, anywhere that you're putting it out there. The thing I would be doing first is, again, going back to last year and seeing what questions people are asking, and your customer service, again, posting on your social comments or your ads, and using that as fodder for your content for the rest of the upcoming at least 6 months in that consideration phase.
Do you think people need, or brands need, permission to turn that stuff into content? Because most brands have this stuff at the ready and don't turn it into content. Do we need to give them permission? Yes, take a question and turn it into a social post, turn it into an email, turn it into an FAQ.
Absolutely. It's free ammunition in my mind, you know, like you've got the weapon. It's just free ammunition. So I would say absolutely. Obviously, you know, you don't, if you're trying to do something like if you're a video editor or graphic designer, if you're considering taking like a screenshot of somebody's comment where it mentions their name, like obviously you need to get permission from the person if you're doing it the right way. I would seek out those permissions. But yeah, like as far as permission to run with that idea of using customer comments, or not even customer comments, but just random comments you get on your ads, heck yeah, that I think it's a great way. And I think if you already have, along with that, if you already have an FAQ section on your site, but you don't have content around that, why not? Like that's easy content to create. I mean, easy, I guess, if it's easy for you. I say it's easy. But you know, you've got the content there. Like it's at the ready, like you were saying, Lynn. It's there. You just have to, you know, transform it into a reel or to a post or an image or whatever it might be. It's there. So why not?
I think there should be explicit permission that they have to use any sort of questions or concerns that come up in their comments or customer service. But getting back to
that's what people care about, right? Yeah. So,
but that shouldn't just be for your external marketing as well. Like staying aligned with your company vision, that has to be, you know, passed throughout the company so people understand what the customer, because then it's all about the customer, like what the customer is experiencing, what their concerns are. How do you make the product better? How do you make the service better? Customer service better? And it's like using that at every step of the journey. Anything else for consideration, like within the 2024 planning?
All the things I have are, we think about metrics. So metrics at consideration, you're looking at subscribers. So more than just video views and website visits, that's awareness. But for consideration, we're looking at opt-ins, subscribers, leads, followers to your channel. You know, people are starting to visit certain pages. These are all signs that the consideration content is working. You know, if at awareness level, yeah, we want them to, you know, follow us and watch our videos and engage with our social posts. But if no one is then going to the next step, we're doing things wrong. As well, consideration, that is everything from comparison pages on your website, like how does our product compare to the other? It could be UGC. It can be, here's how it works, right? Like, here's how the thing works. You press the button, it's this big and it does this. Could be lead magnets to get people to engage. As an example, we had a nonprofit who used as a consideration, a little bit of awareness, but mostly consideration content. So their conversion was donate. So the consideration was the step before, which was, hey, do you want to, for free, do this activity with your kids or for yourself and like fill out and draw and customize this card for a kid with cleft palate issues? Come join us. Then after that, they were sent invitations to donate. But by then they were already engaged. They'd done something for free. They'd learned about the company and the mission and cleft palate issues, and they were more likely to donate.
And that's smart too, because that also got them in that like giving mode where they're doing something for somebody.
You feel good.
That doesn't require money. Yeah. It's cool.
How would you frame that as a larger directive for people, like walking somebody through their customer journey, like thinking about in the cleft palate example, like they're doing an activity that leads them down this path. Like how else would they, maybe not a charity, but yeah.
I mean, we can keep the same example just for time's sake. Their awareness content was, of course, educational and children's stories. So it was educational about cleft palate as a disorder, but as something that happens when babies are born. The causes of it. The symptoms and side effects that it affects children. What they can and can't do with this particular issue. Stories of children. So it was awareness education, which then led to actually getting involved, subscribe to our newsletter, help send cards, send gifts, and then it went to, hey, please donate, please become a recurring subscriber, but donator. But it's walking through that of like, as a brand, you're so like, yes, we have the best product and we have the best. Why don't other people get it? And it's putting yourself in the shoes of your customer, like honestly putting yourself in the shoes and going, okay, they don't know anything. They're seeing our competitors. They're seeing other things because people have desires and problems and pain points that they can solve in other ways that aren't you. So often we think about, well, we have to only talk about our product, and they're thinking about our product as a solution. Well, they may not be. If someone's in a mood to donate and do good, they might be looking at other children's charities. They might not be looking for charities at all. They might be looking to volunteer, something. So keeping that in mind.
I think that's a really good point, though, of like getting out of this mindset that what we do is just messaging or creative, but is driving activities. Like you want to get your customers to take activities with your brand, even if it doesn't cost them anything, especially if it doesn't cost them anything, because that makes them part of your ecosystem, builds more rapport, especially if you can deliver value in those activities. I'm not talking like quiz funnels. Like that's an activity that's very brand focused in most cases. But how do you make these activities customer or future customer focused?
Yeah, that's really specific to the brand. That's the fun stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, it's you're adding value, and that's what you're doing. With the example Lynn mentioned, you're like, hey, create a card and send it to a kid. It's like the value there, which this is unique to charities, for instance. The value there isn't necessarily at that point. You're necessarily like intaking information that's going to help you later on. It's very emotionally based there. The value you're getting is that you did something good. You made somebody's day. You made somebody happy, and that should make you happy too. So it's always, the activity has to have value attached to it. So you talk about like a free plus shipping, book funnel, for instance. The value there is, you pay shipping, like, hey, the book's on us. This is our gift to you. You just have to cover, like the $3-4, whatever it might be. And ideally, if you're doing this correctly, your book is chock full of value. And it's also, if you're Alex or Mosey, for instance, it's chock full of CTAs of getting people to buy. You know what I mean? So you're offering this value that then leads to deeper conversions. So I think that's the concept there for sure.
Yeah, providing value. Yeah, going back to quizzes and value. So where brands get quiz funnels wrong is that they only think of they don't provide value and information. So you think of two types of quizzes. A consideration/conversion quiz would be, which product is right for you? Take the quiz. Well, that's very brand focused and is very useful for certain psychographic stages and stages of awareness, because that's useful. But that's not an awareness level quiz. An awareness level quiz would be, what's your hair type? Take the quiz, you'll learn your hair type, and you'll get a 5-page booklet on how to care for your hair type from experts. And, so you might have a product placement, but the delivery is value. The results page at the end should be all about that hair type, right? And really provide detailed information that is beyond, hey, buy our stuff. right? But really like actually valuable. And where brands get it wrong is they just then go, hey, buy our stuff instead of providing,
Right.
customized language and information and value. So I would challenge the idea that an asset or a marketing tactic can only be for certain stages, because oftentimes it's the strategy of how you approach it. And there's almost always a way to make an asset work for different, an asset in terms of like a tactic, whether that's a lead magnet or white paper, whatnot, work for different stages.
Oops. I got a little ahead myself. I think it's, thinking through this a little bit. There's an example that we were talking about at our leadership meeting of a brand called Laundry Sauce. And, they do have a pretty strong awareness ad, we would say. It's kind of in line with that Dollar Shave Club, which I'll show here in a second. Talking, and they're, they're in a really competitive space when they're going against Tide, and they're trying to be a disruptor in there. So I'll share this. It's a quick 40-second ad.
Cool.
I love laundry. They're all creative, the laundry people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's really good. I just wanted to try it. It's something you never think is going to happen to you, and then it does. From the second I started using Laundry Sauce, the world's best smelling laundry pods, everything changed. Lost my girlfriend. Got 4 new ones. I'm so sore. They can't get enough of the Siberian pine. And no, that's not a euphemism. It's the ultimate aphrodisiac. Rugged, sophisticated, and subtle. Once they get a whiff of my sauce, they keep coming. Back to do their laundry at my place. If you value your alone time, don't go to laundrysauce.com.
So they're definitely playing in that like risque space a bit. Oh.
But going after their avatar, right?
Yeah.
So an underserved avatar in the space. Most people are like, oh, it's clean, or it's, low on plastic, no extra chemicals. There's the guy who takes a bath in his, I don't remember the brand name, so maybe it didn't work so well, but he takes like a bath with a pod or something. The CEO does. But this one's going after a completely different space with lots of takeaway selling. Like, don't do this if you, want to be a lonely single guy, and it, hitting off dudes, do your laundry.
Strong awareness. Next step is to buy their product at.
Do they have a free trial or that
was
send a single
point.
pod?
Like, I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but their one-time purchase is $52 for laundry soap. I don't see an easy way to get a free sample,
or a low-cost sample of like a couple bucks.
Yeah, because I want to smell it.
Exactly.
I don't want to smell it for $52.
Yeah, that would be the next step. Do they have any bundles, or do they just have one product right now?
They have their holiday package. They have not any obvious bundles. A couple of packages that include dryer sheets and scent booster.
Okay, so they can boost their AOV. They can boost their AOV with stuff. Yeah.
It'd be cool if they just could send like one pod.
Yeah, but they don't.
One pod, one laundry sheet, and a little like a smelly like Christmas ornament, like those paper. One thing.
Doing a load.
But that's not anything new in the space. But they should be doing it. Like you don't have to invent new stuff. Like
nope.
I bought a new washing machine. I got a little Tide Pod dishwasher. I got a little Tide Pod. I used it, and it's like, well, that's a whole lot easier than getting detergent and soap. Like there has to be, when you have such a product like this where you're promising, the promise is really smell. They don't talk about being cleaner. It's kind of the Axe body spray of laundry.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's got the same vibe for sure.
But it works.
There should be a free sample or a low cost pack for somebody to
send out a scratch and sniff card.
Yeah.
That's what they should do. If you've interacted, you end up on a mailing list, like provide your address.
Direct mail.
Yeah, direct mail.
Well, there's tools now that can pinpoint your location and by IP and stuff, and actually scary. Yeah.
That is weird.
So you don't even need to give your address. You can be targeted.
Not a fan of that.
I'm not as deep into the direct mail space, but I know they definitely blanket areas of. So if you're seeing through IP addresses, you have a strong source of leads or visitors coming from an area. That's an indicator that you should blanket an area. So I think Daniel, you had a great point. Maybe not even a free sample. Maybe it is a scratch and sniff card.
Yeah,
you would get at a perfume counter. It's just
or find in a magazine.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Magazines, what are those?
People still read those, right?
Yeah.
Got the little perfume cards in there, or like the folded pages that you open up. Remember those?
Yeah.
They should do that.
Yeah.
But it is thinking creatively about that middle step, about how you get somebody, you can start to deliver on the promise that you're presenting in your awareness level ads without getting the full commitment to buy $50 of laundry pods.
Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of the engagement with that ad is just entertainment. I think that's something we haven't mentioned.
Yeah.
Is engagement can be entertainment. People are going to remember that because it made them laugh. You know,
entertainment can still tie to sales. I think.
Right.
I feel like sometimes brands like, oh, we're going to be entertaining, but it has nothing to do with their mission or their avatar or offer in any way. So I think there's a fine line. And yes, you want to just grab attention sometimes, but even better if you can tie these things together in a way that is congruent. It's hard.
All right. So planning, conversions dialed in, you've got your goals, thinking about how you can get people to take activities to make them a part of your brand story, or how your brand can be part of their story, really. And then entertaining them while giving them promise in your awareness. And then it just kind of comes down to planning out how to do all that.
Minor detail.
Yeah.
Lynn, what from your perspective, because I know for sure you've got more insight into this than I do. Can't speak for Tom. What's like, if we're talking through literal planning of a marketing campaign, for instance, what are the timelines typically that you might want to look at? Like, should you be looking at
like per campaign?
12 month, 6 month, 3 month, or is that just going to depend?
I am of the camp, or I sit in the camp that says we should do things that we can repeat and do consistently. So if it's a special offer for direct to consumer, if 1 per quarter to start with, 2 per year. Like if you've never done them before, 2 per year, building a special offer bundle that you promote just to get those muscles, just start flexing those muscles. I would, because we're trying to think long-term, I would say, instead of thinking, well, we're going to run a campaign and then nothing, because you want to continue to do these wins, what can we launch that we can do consistently? Is it a blog post a month? Is it 1 social per day? Is it a new UGC per month? Is it an influencer campaign, 1 for the year? Like I would say, what can we do consistently and build on that, as opposed to thinking about just campaigns? That probably didn't answer your question, but that's what.
No, but it did at the same time. I think it half answered it, because I think blog posts, have become a really important tool. We've seen that a lot across, I think, a few different accounts here, where blog posts for media buying have become a really good tool to drive traffic to one of the blog posts, because that falls into the consideration phase for sure, of like, hey, why don't you read more about this or about this specific topic within our little world here. But for the creative side of things, like for me, blog posts inform content. So blog posts can be a starting point, for instance. So, to your point, if you can commit to 1 blog post a month, for instance, out of that blog post, how much content can you create that then starts to, fill your social media calendar or fill your ad library? Then from there, you look to the signals that you're getting from that, for sure.
Right. Distribution.
I think I think the one thing that's hard that I struggle with is when you think through a content calendar. If you were to look at a blank calendar for a year, you have 365 days that are empty. So where do you even start? And then when you're talking about like awareness, informing consideration, informing conversion, so to say,
I go pure Schwartz.
Then how do you do it? So it's like, man, you have so much awareness you have to put out there, and then you fine tune it, but you still have to fill out all these days. That's where I struggle a lot of the time.
Yeah, I go Schwartz. Most things, in terms of coming up with ideas, it's desire aware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware. I'm coming up with, if it's desire unaware, problem aware, I might dig into pain points. I might address problems, questions. Then you go into solution aware where they're comparing options. There's lots of opportunities there. I prefer to just bulk dump these ideas combined with SEO, which is what we've done, Tom, here at Tier 11. And you should be mixing it up. If you've got 10 posts in a week, maybe 6 are awareness, 2 are consideration. Can I math? 2, and then 2 are actual conversion of like, hey, go ahead and buy this thing. Here's a special offer. Keep the appropriate mix of, 60, 20, 20, or 50, 25, 25, keep that mix in your socials. I don't know if that answered your question, but, and repurpose.
No, it does. And
don't think you have to come up with 365 unique posts.
Yeah. And it's probably different if you're just starting out versus if you have, a full year. If 2023, you were doing everything right and you've got all kinds of data you could look at, it's going to be different, because if you were to start fresh, I would imagine there's going to be a bit of a delay for you to start seeing results with your marketing. You can implement awareness, but awareness is essentially you becoming aware of your audience as well, just as much as they're becoming aware of you. So there's this learning phase of sorts there. If you were to start fresh, that's going to delay your sales coming in, I would guess. So versus if you had 2023 that you can look back on, you can then take what you've learned and cover those 6 months, for instance, to where these things work and they keep people engaged, and you're going to maintain growth. But I think that's also where that idea of building your brand, like brand awareness, to maintain steady growth versus going for conversions all the time, becomes really important as well.
Yeah, for me, I like to think a bit like longer term, kind of 6 months to a year, not necessarily planning out individual activities, but kind of tent poles or themes for different quarters, all driving towards maybe tent pole times of year. So if you're trying to build an audience earlier in the year, or maybe you are trying, like Mother's Day is always a big one. Like, what do we need to be doing to make sure that we are set up for a strong Mother's Day, and really making sure that there's always activity. There's always going to be this like 365 days worth of content going out kind of activity. But there's all these bigger campaigns. That's kind of how I tend to think about this.
Yeah, and it will vary. It will vary from business to business, because you're talking Mother's Day, like that wouldn't be an important day necessarily for a lawn care company or something
laundry,
like that.
Laundry sauce.
Or laundry sauce, so you could smell like a dude. Like, hey mom, you want to smell like a 6th grade boy? So like for a lawn care, it's going to be very seasonal. So you can really think through it from the literal seasons. Like busy times are going to be spring and summer. Maybe fall's a little bit busy depending on your area. So like, what do you do during the winter? That
the
can,
rest of the time's
not
awareness.
Necessarily that you have stuff written in on a calendar, but like, hey, once winter hits and lawns aren't growing, like maybe that's where we educate people more. Like, we're not marketing our services per se, but we're educating people on their lawns and proving our authority in this space, so that when February, March rolls around and we do start pumping out some ads like, hey, get on our schedule now, like the grass is starting to grow, people are going to be like, these guys know what they're talking about, so let's go with them. So yeah, I guess it will vary business to business what your tent poles are.
Yeah, but you can still be pretty clever with like lawn care. I think.
Oh yeah.
our lawn care client, they made grass slippers, like using artificial turf, so you could be touching grass when it's cold outside, right? There's always top of mind. And, it's really important to think about this in terms of not just activity, like the activity for the next year. It's like think more in the terms of impact. How are you going to have the most impact within that time frame?
Yeah.
So Daniel, you had said earlier that 2024 is an election year, and that's something to consider in your planning. What considerations should brands be taking?
It's kind of hard to say without sounding too like pessimistic, but like I kind of feel like you can't take anything at face value, like right off the bat. Election year's jack with everything. I mean, you see it at gas stations with gas prices. You see it in grocery stores. Like, you're going to see it with your ads too. It's going to affect everybody, and numbers are going to probably feel a little different. Trends aren't going to be as trendy as they were previous years. So I think it's more just you have to be very aware that we are in an election year, and you have to be very aware that things might look a little wonky. So there's the aspect of not panicking if something is crazy looking. And there's the aspect of, instead of panicking, you need to really look into it, find out what's going on, what might have impacted it. Obviously that's just in the US, but there's also a lot going on in the world too that is going to be potentially impacted by US elections and all that. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Is you can't take anything necessarily at face value like you might have been able to last year.
Yeah, I'd say
more cautious.
Elections drive divisiveness and loyalty, and probably people not considering other options, whether that's for the election itself or the products. Like, probably a little bit of wanting safety in their decisions and not having things questioned. And then the other more practical concern for budget is, inventory is going to be eaten up by election advertising.
Yeah. And just in general, people's attention, the closer we get to November, people's attention is going to start getting pulled more and more. Like even their feeds, for instance, you mentioned inventory, but even just their feeds, I think you're going to have a lot more of your friends and family on Facebook, for instance, who are just going to start ranting about this candidate or whatever it might be. Your feed's going to fill up with a lot more of this too. But you also might see people, I think you see this more and more now, people get off of social media during election times because they just don't want to deal with it. So attention is going to be pulled, and you might even just lose small portions of an audience because they're not interacting on social media platforms during this time. So yeah, there's just a lot to consider, that things aren't going to be normal as we go throughout this year, and then probably into the next year too. People are not going to be acting normal as well. So yeah, it's just always interesting times. Just something to always be aware of.
Great. Well, I think we've given a bit of guidance for 2024 planning, if maybe not too tactical, but just as planning isn't really tactical, it's strategy and thinking about how you want to approach the year. Lynn, I know you are talking about, we might have a lead magnet that we're putting together.
Yes, I hope so. Can we green light it? Yeah, I would like us to give listeners an actual guide or a roadmap for building out a 2024 marketing strategy slash plan that incorporates brand building and incorporates all the things we've talked about.
Heck yeah.
So we'll be putting that together, and you'll be able to find that at tier11.com/ACC.
Sure. Yeah.
Perfect.
It's not used, so let's go.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you both very much. And if you are looking for somebody to help you plan out your 2024 and be a good partner for you and being more efficient throughout your customer's whole journey, head over to tier11.com, click the big pink button, and we'd love to chat with you. Daniel and Lynn, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
See you.
See ya.